Well, here we go. Another live stream for Truth Proof. This is Thursday. It's the 16th of September 2021. And we've got a great show, for you tonight. I'll just check some audio off there, guys. Just give us a thumbs up if you can hear the stream okay tonight. That would be great if you could do that. I'm looking in the chat, and there's plenty of you on the chat tonight, and it's we're really grateful that you're coming tonight, because I know you've been waiting for this one. This is the stream we had to put off from, I think, a couple of weeks ago, where we had some technical issues and some other issues as well, but should be all good tonight, even though we've had some tech issues tonight, guys. So we have a little bit of a stream down background tonight when the guys come on. Right, let's see who's in the chat tonight. Well, as you know, Debbie Singleton is doing the moderating tonight. She's on, and welcome to the stream, Debs, and thanks for moderating for Truth Proof tonight. You do it most weeks, every week in fact, so thank you very much. And Alison Buttle's in tonight. Let's have a look. We have got Space Cadet Lottie, Lisa Rod. Thank you, Lisa, for coming to the stream tonight. Rebecca King, Nick's Exploration. Thank you, Nick. Tim Brennan, good evening, Tim. Don Lodge is in the stream tonight. And we have, I can't see any, Alex Wingfield. So I think there's all a few name mentions tonight. I think what we'll do then is bring the guys on and give you a good show. Okay then. Take it away, guys.
Thank you very much, Les. Introducing the guys, the Swansea UFO Network, and so pleased to have you here tonight, guys. I'm sure we're going to get some interesting cases. Before we get to you, I do have to say, Don Lodge says hello. Yeah, I know you're good friends with Don, and just a mention for our moderator, Deb Singleton. Her book managed to get into the top 100 of its genre this week. Life is Stranger. So everybody have a look at that, Deborah Singleton. I think it'll be an interesting book. Everything's our own experiences, so well worth a look.
Right, then I'm just going to hold you up, guys. I think we've got some audio problems on your side. Just bear with me. Can anybody in the chat confirm that?
Can we turn Paul up a little?
Hang on. Yeah, I don't think we've got Paul at all. Let's have a look. Sorry about that, guys. Let's have a look. Always happens on a Thursday night.
Every Thursday. We know we're ready for it, aren't we?
Can't see it, Paul.
Okay. I think, yeah,
you got it now, guys. Thank you, Paul. Let's turn Paul up with Tim Brennan says, so we'll know in a moment. I think everything's plugged. Well, it's got to be plugged in, my end, because you've got it, haven't you? So, welcome, the Swansea UFO Network. And can you tell us, first of all, a little bit about yourself, guys? You know, not necessarily UFO related.
All right. Well, I'll start off. I'm Emlyn Williams. This is Mike Maunder. We started Swansea UFO Network back in 2015, wasn't it? Yeah, 2015, to log cases in the area and go out and meeting people and having public meetings every month. And it's gone from strength to strength. The meetings died off a bit last year, obviously, because of the COVID. Yeah. But we've started them back up again 3 months ago. We're getting quite good speakers from all over the country, quite well-known names, some of them. And we've got a website where we've logged well over 1,100 cases now for the whole of Wales. We've got them from various sources, from doing newspaper researches at the library, old on the microfilm, you know. Yeah. People contacting us, come to the meetings, telling us their stories. Even books from the 70s, back in the 70s, the Welsh Triangle and the David Enigma were quite two well-known ones. Gone through the books looking for the cases to log them, add them onto the chronology.
Margaret Fry's books.
Margaret Fry, yeah, we met up with Margaret Fry a couple of times over the last 3 years. Unfortunately, she passed away, but before she did lend us all the notes that she had, which we went through, taking out the cases, and obviously we do give Margaret the credit for that. When we put them on the website. You know, we always log the sources where we got it from to acknowledge the people other researchers, you know. And yeah, 1,100 odd cases, and the monthly meetings are quite well attended. We get 40, 50 people there every month.
Really, that is really good. And well, it's proper boots on the ground research as well. And if you found yourself, I know the slog of sitting in front of them with a microfilm and going through them reels, just looking for a gem. Do you know? Potentially, and some people. I mean, I think some people would probably think we were a bit sad, but I've been today, to be honest. I've been looking at some today, and I find it quite exciting. So I must be. And somebody will be saying in chat, "Get a life." But you know, but you've got to do this if you're going to find these.
Yeah, I've spent hundreds of hours in front of the microfilm screen. You know? Yeah, it's a bit like, I don't do fishing, but I suppose it's a bit like fishing.
It is, yeah, and occasionally, and you're looking for keywords, aren't you? Because you don't want to just read every bit of that paper. You are going through it. What's some of the earliest cases then that you've found in there or within the research?
Well, the earliest case I found doing that way is actually our earliest case. It was referred to in a letter in a 1977 newspaper. A woman told us about her. A woman said in a letter about her grandmother, the story that she told about her when she was young, back in the 1840s.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, I think we've sent Les the photograph there. If you want to put the first photograph up.
It's Trimsaran.
Trimsaran. This is obviously it's not a photograph taken at the time, but I got it off Google just to illustrate where it was.
Yeah. Well, so give us a background on what happened. I mean, obviously you're probably limited with information, but just give us an outline.
The story I got from this lady's letter from 1977 about her grandmother. Her grandmother was 17 at the time. I think it was 1847 or thereabouts, and she lived in a village called Trimsaran, which is near just west of Llanelli, on the South Wales coast. And she was with a friend, and they were walking through the lanes. Obviously, no street lighting in those days, so it was dark. All of a sudden, they heard a noise like a hammer banging on a tin plate behind them, and they turned around, and there was an orb, like a ball of fire, they called it, and it was following them up the road
in close proximity.
Yeah, so they ran away from it, and they ran into a local pub. Obviously, in those days, only men were in the pubs in the 1840s.
Yeah.
And they ran in all in a bit of a state. They explained what they just saw. And the men went outside, and they saw it as this ball of light just flew away.
I suppose
the following night, the men went back out to see if this thing might return. They didn't see a ball of light, but what they did describe seeing was a very strange-looking man. He had white hair, and he was wearing a silver waistcoat. Those are the words they used.
Yeah.
Right. And he was just walking along, and they said hello, and he just ignored them and just carried on. So I'm wondering whether that strange person there might have been some strange goings on in the village at that time.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, I suppose in 1847, what it 18. Yeah. You know, interesting, isn't it? 47 as well. You know, as in Roswell 47. Do you know? But regardless of that, their terminology in 1847, a guy in a silver waistcoat, and it would have been different to ours. I mean, it's an interesting one. From limited information that you'd got, then, did this thing actually appear to follow them, or did they just see it?
Well, the words were that it was following them up the road.
Yeah.
It was making a noise like a hammer banging on a metal plate.
It almost sounds like electricity arcing or something, doesn't it? I don't know. It's difficult. So moving on from that, then we just want to hear some of the cases that you guys have looked into over the years, and I suppose it'll be well rehearsed for you guys. Yeah. You've booked nights.
Let's put the photographs up on screen share so it can give us a bit of a lead then.
Well, right, okay, Les, if you can put some photographs up for these guys.
Yeah, which one is it? Just remind me, guys.
Trimsaran.
Trimsaran.
That was the first one I just talked about.
Number one.
Yeah, number one, and just go through them one after the other then, as we go along.
But we'll have a bit of fun with all these Welsh names, don't worry.
Yes, it's going to be a challenge for me, guys.
Especially get to Anglesey.
We've got Trim Saren photo on.
Right. So what's this then? Explain the photograph.
Well, this is what I just mentioned. This is the story I just said.
Yeah, so the people in the chat don't think I'm dense. I can't actually see these photographs.
Yeah,
So,
we
you know, I'm
can't see
talking
them
to you
either,
guys.
yeah,
So there you go. So that's a representation of the photograph. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a picture, an old picture I got off Google showing the village in the 1800s. So
Yeah.
that pub on the left-hand side could very well be the pub that the girls ran into. Maybe.
Okay.
But again, it's
Do
it's an
we?
interesting story from one of the earliest ones we've got. There was actually another story from the 1600s, which isn't in this thing.
And did you find that in the archives as well?
Sorry?
Did you find that in the archives as well?
No, it's been written about in some books. This one has the 1691, I think it is, up in Anglesey near Holyhead. A ship in full sail was seen in the sky.
Right.
Yeah, by a farmer and his wife, and a local somebody local went and interviewed him and wrote it up, which is quite the way it's written is it's very much like a ufologist going to interview a witness and then writing it up. This was 1600s, you know.
And a ship in full sail in the sky. You know, last
and
week
it was moving through the sky, and then it stopped, and then it reversed its course backward, and the ship just went backwards as if it's like rewinding a film.
I'm
wondering whether you hear stories these days about screen memories where helicopters are seen where they're obviously not helicopters because there's no sound.
Yeah.
Where the witness sees a helicopter, but it's not a helicopter.
Not a helicopter.
I'm wondering whether it's an early example of a screen memory being projected, where this craft is going over, but the witness obviously doesn't see a sort of like a big silver dish or a triangle, if any, which would be way out of their understanding.
Yeah, way out.
Which itself would be strange to be seen in the sky, but
so they're given something that's going to be sort of acceptable to their understanding. Yeah, I mean, we're always going to get people saying, "Could it have been a mirage?" You know, when we get over the sea, when we look from high up down onto the coast at Bridlington, there's reports in the microfilm archive of seeing Hull and the docks over the sea, and Mirage and Bempton Cliffs over the sea. But this doesn't sound like it because you've just said it reversed.
Yeah,
it actually moved. They're almost photographic, the Mirage, you know.
Yeah. So there have been, if you look through the old documentation on UFO sighting, well, aerial phenomena recorded in history, this does pop up now and again. There's this ship in the sky. There's a couple of cases where a ship, its anchor on a chain gets caught in the church steeple, and a man floating down. Yeah. To unhook it.
It's not that unusual, is it? You know, 2009 at Woolsthorpe, there's a report, a Coast Guard report, and the witness says that she saw orange spheres of light. I think I talked about it other week, traveling in either direction towards what looked like a yacht sail in the sky, a black yacht sail. She doesn't say a black triangle. She says a black yacht sail. You know, so it's a similar thing, isn't it? You know, they're describing it in some kind of terms or how it's appearing to them. So, do you want to put another picture up, or would you like to talk about the 1977 Broadhaven case? Well,
there are some more pictures on the.
Right. Okay, then. Okay.
We can't see the pictures though, Les. I don't know.
No, I can't. So.
Which pictures do you want on now?
Well, do the next one, number 2. They're all numbered. Go in order.
Okay, can you tell me what number 2 is then, the subject, because I've just got wrote subjects.
Oh, right. It's got K and B on it.
K and B,
okay.
Oh,
right, I got it.
Number 2, K and B. It's an old black and white photo.
Right. K and B. Yes.
Again,
yes.
When you're talking about like sailing ships and things like that, it's very similar to, we get a lot of people we talk to, and they've got either owls in the house, or they've seen owls.
Yeah.
And you get quite a lot of abductees or even witnesses, you know, that would say, oh, they saw an owl.
Yeah.
Like, so we interviewed somebody a couple of years ago, and he said, oh yeah, there was a 3-foot owl in the middle of the road. Just up the road, there was lights in the hedge and in the field opposite.
Yeah.
The owl didn't move. They had to go around the owl, and then further up then, and we think she's got missing time because there's a light in the field that was never there.
Again, it's a screen memory.
The screen memory, yeah, it's so that
Fireland's done a lot on that, isn't it?
Yeah.
giving us something we're familiar with, aren't they? You know,
Yeah.
when as a child, when I saw those eyes in the curtains, all I could relate to were cows' eyes, because there were cows in pasture at the back of us, just at the bottom of my garden, and that was the only thing that I could think of. And now I'm not saying that was a screen memory, because I think I actually were looking at them thinking these are cows' eyes. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So is the picture up now, Les?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we know which one it is, but even though we can't see it, it's a photograph I found just to illustrate the site where it happened. Well, this happened in 1965 in just north of Swansea, in a little village called Anglesey, and the photograph shows the canal. It's the Swansea Canal. There were 2 witnesses involved. They were about 18 years old at the time, boyfriend and girlfriend, who subsequently got married, and they're still together now, and they're in their 70s now. But this is an early abduction case, which is quite similar to Betty and Barney Hill's experience, in my view. And it's quite early for Britain because it involves grey aliens.
Right.
And 1965 is, I can't think of any others in Britain of an abduction.
Yeah.
But they'd been out in the car for the evening, and they were putting the car back in the garage, which is like a tin shed garage down an alleyway sort of thing, you know.
Yeah.
And right next to the canal, and all he can remember was seeing this craft up above, hovering above a railway viaduct, which is nearby, with lights all the way around it. His next memory was of putting the car away in the garage. But his girlfriend can remember a lot more. She can remember the huge round craft surrounded by lights on the ground or hovering just above the ground, with a door open, with steps leading down from the door, with a being standing in the door.
The steps have lights?
Yeah, each step had its own lights, and she felt that she had to go on board, as this being was telling her to go on board, and she was doing it not of her own volition, but she can remember seeing these lights on the steps and thinking, that's unusual.
Yeah.
Things stick in the memory, sort of thing. And then the next memory was of lying on a table, classic scenario, lying on a table, a metal table, and it wasn't cold. And there were beings in the room, which she described as greys. And she thinks one of them might have been the same one who was in the doorway. And she was being examined. And the next thing she could remember is in the car with her boyfriend as he was putting the car away. They went back to his house. He was living with his mother, and his mother was annoyed with him. And she said, "Where have you been?" He said, "Well, it's not that late, is it?" And she said, because he had to be in by 11 because he had work the following morning, and his mother was really annoyed because he was gone 12.
Really?
So there's an hour missing there.
Yeah.
What
do you think, Emlyn, Mike? What do you? They're obviously functioning to get that car from wherever they were to the garage. So it's the memory that's been erased, because we don't think that the actual beings are transporting them and the car back to the garage, do we? I personally don't. I think there's a memory, an erasement of memory. Probably, well, obviously after they've got that vehicle back to the garage, but it's the process, isn't it? It's. I've cut you off on your story. Carry on, guys.
Okay.
That's it. It's an unfinished case as far as we're concerned, because I'm still working on them to see if one of them can be regressed.
Yeah.
I actually said to the woman, I said, "Have you thought of getting hypnotized and getting regressed?" And she said, "Oh, I won't say his name, but he does hypnotism." I said, "Who does?" He's my husband. I said, "What?" Yeah, he hypnotizes people to help them give up smoking and stuff like that, you know.
He can't
and I said,
himself.
"You never thought to hypnotize you to find out what happened on that night? And she said, no, I've never given it a thought, really.
No.
Well, the funny thing is, they came to our meetings, and
Yeah.
we had to prod them to say, come on, come tell us your story. Tell us your story, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they sat there,
She said,
matter of fact,
what do you want to know for?
So it weren't the stigma that were attached to it. It's probably just, I bet they think about it every day, but they're just not share it. They've never shared it before, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem to, she wasn't too upset or uptight or stressed about it. She was
It's
quite
just one of those things.
It's just one of those things. Yeah.
Yeah. And they've had no experiences before or since that?
No, apart from seeing the odd object in the sky.
Yeah.
Took a nice photograph of an amber-coloured boomerang a few years ago.
Well, obviously now, would you stay with him for a moment? What do they think purpose of that interaction was then? You know, you've had them at meetings. Have they said, what do they think that they were abducted for?
They don't know.
No.
Yeah. But it doesn't sound like as if they've had many experiences afterwards. You know, it's a case of that stuck in their minds. That's the one that they remember.
Yeah.
Do you think
we've got to follow it up with another interview, really, because proper interview.
Yeah, it sounds like wrong place, right time, not opposite. Do you know what I mean? They'd probably just unfortunate that were there, and they
I think it's quite an important case in British ufology because it was quite early.
Yeah.
1965.
So do you want Les to gather another picture and get it on screen and go with that then?
All right, what have we got next?
I think the next picture might be to do with that again, isn't it?
The Singleton Hospital.
Oh, Howard.
Yes.
Ah, this is a cracker, this is.
Okay.
Singleton Hospital, number 3.
You
Number
got
3
it up there, Les. Thank you. Yep.
Yeah. Right, this is 1966, a year later, still in Swansea. We got a large hospital on the seafront called Singleton Hospital, and at that time it was being built. And the electrics had been put in because a guy living opposite in his room, he could see he was doing his own work. He was a student at the time, he was 18. A fellow called Howard Middleton Jones. He doesn't mind his name being used. He was sitting at his desk in his room, and out of the corner of his eye, some lights caught his attention, flickering lights. And he looked out across the road to the hospital, and all the lights is like 5 floors. All the lights and all the floors, all different rooms, are all flashing on and off randomly. I thought, that's strange. And then he suddenly saw then above the hospital a huge object hovering directly over the hospital, just a few feet above, the size of the hospital. And he said it was either cigar shaped or a disc, rude edge on, but it was dark. It was completely black and featureless. And it was actually blotting out the stars in the starry sky, you know?
Yeah.
So he pegged it down the stairs out into the road, which was a little country lane then. It's a dual carriageway now, and there were a couple of cars had stopped, and the people who were out looking at this thing. So he wasn't the only witness. And he was watching it for a few minutes, and then a little green light appeared in the center.
If we put the next image up, Les.
Yeah, put the next image up. This green light spread like a line, like that, slowly spread, becoming a line across the middle of this dark object to the edges. And he presumed it went around the other side as well.
Yeah.
And then just after the line had become complete, have you got the picture up now with the line on it?
You got the picture up, Les?
Yeah, we're trying to get there.
Should be that one.
Yeah.
Is it there, Les?
No, it's not coming at the moment.
No worries.
Oh, sorry, no worries.
Well, anyway, this.
Carry on with your description, lads, please.
Yeah. As soon as this line was complete, the whole thing sort of shuddered and just disappeared.
Linked out.
Wasn't there anymore. But where it was, the space where it had occupied, he still couldn't see the stars for a few seconds, and then it was still black, and then the stars just slowly appeared then, and it was all back to normal. As soon as that happened, all the lights in the hospital went back to normal. Whatever effect it was having had finished.
1966. I wonder if any equipment or malfunctions occurred in hospital. I wonder if there's a report of it. I mean,
well, it's the hospital was still under construction.
Ah, right.
The electrics had been put in, but it wasn't being used as a hospital at that stage.
It's quite a wide hospital. It's quite wide, you know. It's
yeah.
So it must have been quite a big craft that was up there.
Were there any reports of this in newspapers then?
That one wasn't in the paper. No.
No.
But the electrical disturbance is an interesting thing. That does crop up quite a lot with UFOs.
Oh yeah.
Causing blackouts and power failures.
Yeah.
We've got another case that we could talk about, or we will be talking about later on. So
yeah, we got.
Well, are you moving through them in order that you guys want to go then, or did you want to go on to that one now?
No, we can move
around.
Yeah,
we're flexible.
Yeah, Mike mentioned that there is another case we're looking at, which we call the Night of the Triangles from 1983, and a witness told us. He was a second-hand witness because he worked in this big factory, and when he went to work the following day after this occurrence had happened, he was told that there'd been a power failure in this large building, this huge factory, and it wasn't complete in one go. It sort of started at one end and worked its way through the building. Like the lights went to black. That suggests to me that something was flying over.
Yeah,
and slowly
as it's moving across. Yeah,
there's another part of the city on that same night where a triangle was seen. There was a blackout there that night in that part. So there's two cases there of electrical disturbance.
So when you say the night of the triangles, we've got more than one object. So what was seen? We know the triangular shapes, but different shapes, different colours, black.
Well, there were many witnesses in different parts of the city and across South Wales, actually, seeing these large triangles, sometimes in 2s and 3s, sometimes single, sometimes the size of a car, sometimes huge, the size of a jumbo jet or football pitcher's size, in different places at the same time.
We've got quite a few of them are saying they're massive craft.
Yeah.
And then other ones are saying, they're quite big, so you don't know how big, but massive is massive.
Massive's massive, and it's bigger than a car, isn't it? Because you said some size of a car.
What was the size of a car? Yeah.
And
flying just above the rooftops.
They were just sort of a lot of, hard to explain. In Swansea, there's a place called Town Hill, and then you got down the hill, you got different areas, and you got lots of streets. So when we've seen, some guy Mark saw, where did he say his? He saw his on, that was quite big, wasn't it?
It was about 500 foot up, and it had a circle of light underneath it.
Right.
White.
Moving really slowly. And then a few streets down then, somebody else saw something very similar, moving very slowly over the rooftops, which was making like a chug noise as it went past.
Yeah, and
Really?
that was at 6:15.
not silent then.
That was at 6:15. Yeah, he was making a chug noise. Yeah, at the exact same time, 4 miles away in Gorsainon, there were 3 guys standing outside a snooker hall, waiting to go in. So this jumbo jet size triangle moving completely silently down the street, just above the rooftop. It was about the size of a jumbo jet. That went off, and then they saw two very big, but not as big, triangles moving up and down the road, just above the rooftops, with no lights on at all.
Well, that's crazy.
So
1983.
that's exactly the same time, 6:15.
Yeah, such a variation. What? Anybody got any conclusions? Do they think it was some kind of man-made product, or is general consensus that it wasn't?
Well, there were triangles seen after that. 1986, there were some seen, and you mentioned 1998.
1998, I got loads of reports around East and North Yorkshire, because when you spoke about the triangles, I immediately thought, well, we're going to be 1990s here, because I think 1994 they had a wave of these sightings up until about 98, but you're talking 83, and we're probably talking about the same things. But what is interesting is you've got one going slowly and quite low over the road. Did you say making a chugging sound? Yeah. Then you've got something that's monstrously huge, as big as a jumbo jet, totally silent. Yeah. It's almost as though it's trying to play the actual phenomena is trying to play with people's minds, because it's throwing that many different variations of what is essentially a very similar thing out at people. So much confusion that everybody who listens to it without an interest or from outside of the ones that saw it are going to think we're a lot of rubbish. All them people, it's got to be. They're all saying different things. You know, it's an interesting one, but a difficult one to get your head around, isn't it?
Yeah, but
and I'm not saying a load of rubbish, by the way, guys, but you can see where people are going to go with it when they're the huge ones, the small ones, the silent ones. Did anybody talk about any electrical effects on the body, like the feeling of static or feelings of immense fear? You know, great fear.
Well, we've got about 3, maybe 4 cases of that night where they've said that they had no idea. You know, they just went outside. They had a feeling of going outside.
Yeah.
Standing up, looking at this huge thing just hovering above the rooftops, you know?
And it did have a psychological effect, I think, in a way that the perceptions were changed. The two separate people have said that they were in this sort of like a bubble.
Well, about 3 actually. 3
Is this the silence? Is this the silence that everybody's immersed into? The strain? Yeah.
I think Jenny Randalls refers to it as the Oz factor. She actually interviewed one of those witnesses in Cardiff, a woman called Carol Griffiths, who saw one of these big triangles on that exact night in the early evening. Same time as stuff was going on in Swansea. So and there's this Natalie that told us of her sighting. She said it was January, but it wasn't cold and it was all quiet. And as she was watching this huge object hover completely motionless above her street, there were other people out in the street looking at it as well. Her stepdad and her sister came out of the house with her to watch. But strangely, they sort of weren't interested and they went back in the house. They said, I've seen enough. But she said, I want to see what happens. I want to see what's going to do. She wants to watch it go when it goes. So she stood there looking at it, and all of a sudden it wasn't there anymore. It was cold. The other people had gone. And she was really disappointed she didn't see it go because it just wasn't there.
There's
a time difference there that she's lost memory, I think.
She didn't see it go or anything. It just wasn't there.
But this thing, we don't know if it was that one was a triangle. It was on the same night as the night of the triangles, early evening, 19th of January, 1983. She said it was so big she couldn't see the edges of it. She just saw this big, she called it a stadium of light, sort of like a football stadium shaped ring of light underneath it on the undersurface.
Opaque colours, isn't it? Quite opaque.
And she had a feeling. She was watching TV at the time, and she had a feeling to go out to see for some reason.
So there's something happening there, isn't there, on another level, where the actual witness to these things is impressing some kind of form of its will upon people. And you get one person going outside who's in awe of it, and another group of people, or 1 or 2 people, who think, seen enough, and go in it. Even that's bizarre, because
it's like they were switched off.
Yeah, no matter what your belief system, if you saw something like that, I can't imagine anybody who's switched on enough not to want to stand and look at it. You know, it's crazy, isn't it? You know, has anybody written a book about this or thought about it? Because it sounds...
Well, one of our guys, Steve Drewson, one of our he's my co-founder, he's actually started writing a book on it.
Yeah, could you imagine?
No research.
Yeah, like we did
it with us. Anyway.
We did a podcast the other day, and it took 4 hours for us to talk about this case.
That was
but, you know, it's 4 hours, but we've got that is roughly about 30 odd witnesses that we went through. We've got about another 30 to 40 that we haven't added onto the database.
Yeah, some have passed away, unfortunately, but we know about them because they were mentioned in the newspapers at the time. You got in the South Wales Evening Post and the South Wales Echo, Swansea and Cardiff.
So we're calling it, or you're calling it, the night of the triangle. So what it one specific night? What month was this?
19th of January, 1983.
Okay. And nobody reported anything on 18th or 20th, or do you not know?
It's all roughly in the space of about an hour and a half.
A bit more than that. It started about 5.
Yeah,
and it went on to 7 or 8 p.m.
Yeah.
But the following morning, early on, there
crazy.
was a lot of military activity in the skies. Lots of planes and helicopters flying around the following morning.
Well, obviously, if this whatever it was, this, we'll call it this phenomena, weren't our own. It's going to have created a lot of interest. Has any Freedom of Information reports gone in? You know,
No,
asking.
we haven't done that as such. That's something we haven't thought about.
Jonathan Davis, who's just joined us, he's looking into that now. Yeah, we got 2 CID at the time. There were 2 CID officers were witnesses to this.
No, that's
and,
good.
They were contacted by the RAF when they got back to the station because they'd radio it in. A couple of hours later, they had a phone call, and they were interviewed separately by telephone by the RAF in Uxbridge. And so the RAF knew about it at the time.
So during the evening, there was a helicopter from RAF Brody. But why would a helicopter from RAF Brody be flying around Swansea Bay flying around? It was quite strange, that is.
And these police officers, were they actually working that night?
Yeah, they'd been to interview a member of the public. They'd been a spate of burglaries in the area, and they just come out of the house. And looking down the valley, Swansea Valley, they saw this. This was actually a rectangle they saw, not a triangle. Right. He said it was 2 or 3 football pitches in size with blue lights around it.
So has that gone into a police logbook, do you know, guys? Has it?
Well, they radioed it in, and they were told by the woman on the radio control that there'd been a lot of public phoning in with it. So that would have been passed on to the MOD, so it's in the MOD files.
So there's some great evidence there to be obtained, isn't there? Just you know, obviously we can't prove a word of what these guys are saying, but when you've got such a volume of people coming forward saying these, for me, it stands up. Do you know? It's not just one person saying they've seen something.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a photograph of one of the CID guys there, Les. It's Mike will tell you the title of it now. You can put that up.
Can you see that, Les?
Oh yeah, it's 10E.
10E.
Night of the Triangles.
We could 10E Night of the Triangles. We could put that up.
Yes, I'll
what I was going to do that. Go back to Natalie. I think it was the day or the next day. She sort of woke up. She's having a shower, and she.
Oh, this is the girl who had a feeling to go outside, and her stepfather and sister were interested.
She got a lump on her head, which was roughly the size of a 2p. You know, a domed lump. But no recollection of banging her head there. She had no head traumas. Mother, because she asked her mother, she said, "Why have I got? You know, have I had any head injuries?" And she said, "No."
And was there any pain with this lump?
I don't know if she was in any pain. I can't quite remember.
No.
No, but she still got it now. A little ball patch.
It's all a little ball patch with a raised dome, you know. You can feel her head, and it's like, oh, that's so weird.
Interesting, isn't it? Interesting.
I have no idea how it got there.
Is the
photo up?
Oh yes.
Yep. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, you can see Mike Troke doing a drawing there.
And
Steve Drewson. Yeah, he was a CID. He's retired now, obviously. Guy on the right is Steve Drewson, the one who's writing the book on it now.
So have you got any taped interviews of these guys? Because it's an amazing.
Yeah, we've got about 8 witness accounts, which we've gone out, videoed them, and put them on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, they're on the YouTube. If you want to have a look. Night of the Triangles. There's a few of them.
You want the YouTube channel, guys? Just Les has probably put it up, a link to it, but if not, tell us what it is.
Well, it's called Swansea UFO Network. That's the channel. And if you put in Night of the Triangles, and they are numbered, they're only short in. There's a separate little film for each interview. You know, it's not very long.
Probably about 10 minutes.
10 minutes, yeah. And there's a number afterwards. We still add into it because we still filming the interviews, filming the witnesses.
The last one we did was with Jonathan Davis. He's with us now. His account is pretty bizarre because he can't remember anything of that day. He had rugby practice after school. He can't remember doing that. All he can remember is standing in this field in a pitch black, very similar, not cold, As if he's in a silent bubble.
This is the night of the triangles, by the way, same night.
But this is in Newport. And when he looked up, he could see
It's 50 miles from Swansea.
a massive craft going over, as in, like, he said it could be either one or it could have been 3 in a row.
Yeah, he saw he's like a boomerang, bit like the Phoenix Lights.
Yeah,
you know, the chevron. But there were multiple rows of them. He doesn't know if they were separate craft or all on the same craft. But it was miles wide, he said. And he just came to in this field, and it wasn't cold, he said.
No,
yeah.
he said
And it was moving off slowly towards the west, towards Cardiff direction.
He was just in a t-shirt.
I was just going to say, you know, what clothing were he in, and did he feel cold afterwards?
Well, yeah. Once he got out of this sort of like little bubble, or the silence and stuff like that, he just realised he was in the field. He knew where he was because he could. It's like an old leisure centre at the end of it, so he just legged it home, you know. Yeah. And he was scared his mother was going to tell him off. Where you know, where you've been, etc., etc. So he ran around the back of the house, climbed up the drain pipe.
What's the place called? Underwood. Yeah. It's a little housing estate in the countryside just east of Newport, and it's called Underwood.
Right.
But found out from somebody that local bus drivers years ago called the place Underworld because of all the weird stuff going on there.
Really? So you've sort of identified a place that's got a history of strange.
Yeah, that's just a modern housing estate.
Yeah.
1950s, but they built it for the steelworkers in Clanwern Steelworks.
But from his house to the field is probably about a mile or a mile and a half. And yet he's got no recollection of how he got there, or where he was, or what he was doing throughout that day. You know, it's just a case of like.
He said there were mud on his football boots. He found mud on his football boots when he got home, so it shows that he did go to football rugby practice. Wherever.
But you know, now things are a little bit open within the subject of UFOs and unexplained phenomena. You know, people are a little bit more accepting of it. This is potentially massive if you could get the word out in the. I know that it will have been. I'm not telling you guys what to do because you'll have done it, but get the word out on little radio shows, radio stations, local papers, because this guy found himself looking up at this craft or these objects as they move away. I wonder how many more people have got a little cameo event like that they've talked about.
Well, this particular night, we did a talk on one of our monthly meetings, and I put a piece in the local paper, and several people turned up at the meeting with came forward with their own recollections from that night. One didn't want to give his name, but he was on a hill and he was actually looking down on the triangle, because the triangle was at low altitude in the valley in Swansea, and he was actually above it, looking down on it, which is quite strange.
Yeah.
He said he was just moving very, very slowly over the rooftops.
That's just absolutely.
He didn't want to give his name. He was quite scared at the time, but he kept the meeting. I told him what I wanted to tell you. He said, I don't want to take it any further, and he just left.
It's kind of frustrating, isn't it? You know, we've spoke to a few people like that. One for when we've been making Wolflands, we've got a great story, but it's just died on us because we can't. You know, without the witness, we can't move forward with it, can we? We can tell a story, but it's difficult, isn't it? The witness can't prove what he's saying, but it just validates what Mike and Emlyn's saying a little bit more, or Paul Sinclair. So it's always good when they're brave enough to talk about it.
Yeah, and it reminded me now. There's a woman came to one of our early meetings when we first formed, and she never told this story to anybody before, only people in the family and her partner. But it was in 1969-70 period. In the night, about 9 p.m., she was on the way home from a guides meeting. She was about 14, and as she was walking, she used to walk up this little cul-de-sac and in through a back garden to get home. And there was a gateway at the back of her house leading into a nursery, and the gate was open, or the gate wasn't there. It was just a brick or stone pillar, and there was something looking at her round this pillar.
Do you want to put up picture 4C, St. Thomas, Les?
Picture 4C.
Yeah, well, Les is doing that.
It's a drawing, it is.
Yeah, if you can think of the next picture, not for Les to put up, but it just gives him a chance and he's ready for it. So what would be coming after this, guys?
Well, is the picture up now?
He's doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's up.
Yeah. This is a drawing I did from her description. It was basically what you'd think was a grey alien, but she said it was like a silvery sort of sheen to its skin, and it was very, very puny. It had a pointy chin, no ears. Its almond-shaped eyes were vertical.
Really?
Not sort of slanted like we normally see them. And instead of all black, they were white with a black iris. And she could just remember seeing this puny-looking arm, part of the shoulder and arm. That's in the picture. Anyway, she got really scared. She ran back down the road and knocked on the door of somebody she knew, this couple that she knew. They walked her back up the road. It had gone.
Yeah.
And now this girl was a strict Catholic upbringing. Okay, she went to a Catholic school,
Yeah.
and her teacher was a Catholic priest. And I asked her, what did you think it was? Because her parents didn't let her watch TV. Star Trek would have been on at the time. She'd never seen it. She didn't know anything about science fiction. And she assumed that it was a demon.
Yeah.
It's the only thing she could connect to. And strangely, a couple of days, or the following day or a couple of days later, in the classroom, the teacher, I said was a priest, he asked the class if anything strange had happened to them recently. And can you write the story down in your books? And she still got the exercise book with a date on it. And she said it's in storage somewhere. I'm still waiting for her to come out with that. We'll have the exact date then, which is cool.
Which is good.
But yeah, it's interesting. People come forward with these stories that they want to get it off their chest. They come to our meetings where they know they're not going to get laughed at.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes they come and they think they are going to be laughed at, and they're quite surprised when they're not.
It's important that you're running a group like this, because it's a service to these people who've had,
absolutely, yeah,
in some instances, traumatic experiences, and the torment inside here is incredible. And you're giving them an avenue, a place to vent that torment.
And to listen to them and talk to them. Not normally, as in not ridicule them or put them down.
Because without these people coming forward, these stories, these recollections, they're just going to get lost, aren't they? And
yeah, I know you're moving through the stories in some kind of order, which is great. We like that. Just give Les a hint of the next photograph, then it can be ready for you. We don't have to have it on yet.
Fourth call.
You're right. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So we don't have to.
4D.
Okay.
Fourth call 4D.
This one's going to be of interest.
Just 1 minute, Emlyn. You know, when you've kind of identified a multi-phenomena area. You know, when the place where the steelworkers' homes were built.
Yeah.
Is it just UFO type stuff that's seen in these areas, or is it all manner of unexplained phenomena, poltergeist phenomena, big cryptids, big cats? What else is seen in these areas? Just to take it away from your program, should I say, for a moment?
Well, that particular one in Underwood, near Newport, I don't know of any specific cases. All I know is a reference that somebody from Newport said, "Oh, Underwood, yeah," because he knows bus drivers. See, this guy does. He said, "Yeah, the old bus drivers used to call that underworld because of all the UFOs and sightings seen in that area."
Okay.
Is interesting. But yeah, I take your point about that. Sometimes multi-phenomena can be seen in an area.
Well, that's what we're finding here on East Yorkshire coast. It's, and I think it's probably in a lot of areas where the UFOs are seen. I think what happens, you get your UFO researcher who doesn't really want to branch out and look at if there's been a big cat sighting potentially, or a cryptid type sighting. I mean, I've said it 1,000 times. I never really thought I'd get involved in the cryptids, but I can't turn my back on it when I've so many people coming to me saying they've seen these things. So, yeah. but what I am finding is the location is throwing out all manner of unexplained phenomena. Now, that's what I'm getting at with Underwood. You know, have you looked into it to see whether there's other
Wales in general has got a very strong tradition of myths and legends to do with the fairy phenomena, which quite often smacks of the UFO abduction scenario where
I would think so.
Somebody's disappeared and he's been gone for days, and he comes home not realizing he's been gone away, with a story that he met these fairy folk who took him away, and
that is no disrespect to people of yesteryear, but that is the way that they would describe it, isn't it? You know, we've come on in our terminology quite a bit more. Do you want to stay where you are, guys, or do you want to move to the next photograph?
Yeah, go to the next photograph now, because this one will be on.
Les, is that on?
Is it a press cut in?
Oh,
yeah,
press cut in.
Yeah, it's on. Yeah, we've got it.
They called it Came Out of the Sea. Yeah,
should be, yes.
This will be of particular interest to you, Paul, because you've been looking into USOs recently, haven't you? This is 1957. Two police officers were on the beat, and they saw this, what was described as a blood red disc come out of the sea. And as it emerged out of the sea, it had black stripes across it. This is at night time, by the way.
Yeah.
And then it was about the size of a sun, the setting sun, about the size of the sun. So it's quite a big disc.
Yeah.
And as it came out of the sea, then it shot off to the west. It moved off to the west towards the Atlantic. So they reported it, and the Western Mail got hold of it, and they put it up, and they contacted the local Coast Guard. The Coast Guard said, what the two officers probably saw was the Aurora Borealis.
Yeah, well, that's probably staple explanation for today, weren't it? But,
yeah, and we were doing a talk to a local women's institute near Porthcawl in a village called Kenvig Hill. And after I mentioned this, we put this slide up of the press cutting, and as part of the talk. And afterwards, a lady came over to us, and she said that she knew the police officers concerned. She lived in the same block of flats as one of them, and they had quite a hard time of it. These two police officers did. They were actually asked for transfer. One went to Blandford Forum, and the other one went to Poole. Were they families as well? One was married, one wasn't.
Not telling the truth.
Not telling the truth, yeah. And she gave a bit more information from what was in the newspaper article. They said they were actually standing in the doorway of the Porthcawl Grand Pavilion on the seafront, having a sly fag, when they saw this nice little bit of colour there. And they saw this thing coming out of the sea. Yeah.
It's quite incredible, isn't it? And that's an example of why people don't talk about it in itself, because you know they're in professional jobs with responsibility, and I bet they regretted even talking about it.
Yeah.
You know, is there more to that, or do we move on to another slide?
I think I'm almost covered that one.
We have got another USO.
There's another SO.
Before you start with the other USO, give Les a clue with next picture, so he's got it ready for you.
The Tenby one that leads on to.
Yeah, you can do over the sea. Yeah, there we are. You can go number 16, which is Tenby, Temby.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he'll be ready for that when we get to it. So let's hear about this other USO, please.
It was a woman called Sarah contacted us last year, and she told us a story about something that happened on the 19th of August, 2001. No, I got a really bad memory as I get older, but I tend to remember dates. I can't remember what I did yesterday. Never mind. 19th of August, she was with some friends in just to the west of Tenby in a village called Penally. They'd been to a nightclub, and they were walking back home to Tenby along the beach. I don't know if you know the Tenby's a lovely little coastal town.
It's got sand dunes.
In Pembrokeshire.
There's a big caravan park, and in front of it is sand dunes, and then you got a beach, and you got Cozy Island in front of it.
Anyway, this group of friends, they were about 18, 19, 20-year-old, they were walking back home, and mixture of boys and girls, and they all said, let's go for a swim. And then Sarah didn't fancy going for a swim because she said she didn't want to walk the rest of the way home with wet clothes because they didn't have towels to dry themselves. They were just been putting clothes on wet bodies, So she decided just to sit on the sand dune and just watch them as they went in the water. And it was all dark, being the beach. And sunny sky with some starry sky with some clouds, and all of a sudden she said there was like a light came down, like moonlight. She thought it was the moon coming out of the clouds, and she looked up. It was like a bright star shining this light down onto the beach, lighting an area, a circular area up, okay, of the beach. Her friends were about 25 feet away. They were quite close to her, but they weren't there anymore.
She couldn't hear them shouting, screaming.
They were before that. They were laughing and shouting and that, and splashing about. And she could hear. All of a sudden, it was all quiet. All she could hear was the waves on the sand, you know, the sea. And where she was sitting was just outside this circle of light on the beach.
Right.
Where her friends had been was in the centre of this circle, which overlapped over the sea and over the beach. Okay, and then this went on for a little while, and she was starting to get quite scared and a bit panicky, thinking, "What am I going to do?" All of a sudden, then the light. She said the light was swallowed back up into the craft, or the light that she saw in the sky. She couldn't see a craft; it was just a white light.
Yeah.
And when that happened, then she could hear her friends again. They were in the water still, as if nothing had happened. And then this thing zigzagged across Carmarthen Bay to the east. And as it zigzagged, it stopped for milliseconds at each point of the zigzag as it disappeared into the east towards Gower. Her friends came out of the sea, and she said, "Oh, did you see the light? Did you see that?" And they said, "What are you on about?" They had no recollection of it whatsoever. And to this day, they still can't remember.
But
when she brings it up with a friend that she's still in touch with, she said, "Oh yeah, that was the night we all got abducted," sort of, ha sort of thing.
It's strange. I mean, did she? Was she privy to actually watching the sequence of events that happen? You know, obviously, the people involved, her friends, however many they were, they've no idea. That's incredible, isn't it? You know.
So maybe they could have been taken up into the craft and.
Was there missing? We don't know if there's missing time. You know,
she did say that when they walked back to Tenby, it seemed to take a long time because it was quite late when they got there. So maybe she did experience missing time.
Yeah. Okay. So do we want to move on to the picture then?
That was Les's picture of Tenby, wasn't it?
Tenby, yeah. You had that one up, didn't you?
Yeah.
Do we want to move on to the next picture that you talked about?
What do you want to go on to now then?
I think you've already told him, Mike.
Oh no, the police helicopter.
Oh yeah, number 14, Les. NPAS St. Athan.
Oh, the helicopter, yeah.
Yeah,
that's it.
I did right. June the 8th, 2008. You got another date? I remember.
Okay.
A lot happened on that day. It was in all the newspapers, and the Sun had picked up on this one particular story. A police helicopter was coming into land at its base at RAF St. Athan on the South Wales coast in the Vale of Glamorgan between Swansea and Cardiff on the Bristol Channel. And as it was coming into land, it was buzzed by a UFO, which it then subsequently chased across the Bristol Channel. But then they had to turn back because they were low on fuel because it was at the end of the shift. You remember that? It was quite a famous one at the time. Well, I just by chance managed to meet the pilot of the helicopter, and he told me that what was written in the Sun was a bit dramatic.
Yeah, wasn't quite right.
They had this impression of this great big disc buzzing this helicopter, didn't it?
Yeah,
you remember?
yeah.
It's the flying saucer. He said what it was something the size of a beach ball, but 3 feet across, translucent. You could see into it. It was a sphere. As they were coming into land, it came up towards them from the ground and stopped about 3 feet in front of the cockpit window. And he could look inside it. There was a little red light and a little green light. And it was like a bubble. It was translucent with a slight sheen on it. And as the helicopter was moving, it kept pace with the helicopter.
And the downdraft didn't affect it?
No,
nothing.
He mentioned that. He said, "Oh yeah, people have told me, it was probably a drone," but there was no way the downdraft would have blown it away, you know. But it was no effect.
Yeah.
There were two other police guys on the helicopter. One was in charge of the night vision equipment, you know, and the heat signature, you know, infrared camera. he said there was no heat signature at all in this thing.
No, right. Which is so that
they could see it visually, but it didn't show up on the camera. And as it flew off down into a farmyard, so they followed it, hovered about, it disappeared, and then it came back up, went across the road, and then went out over the sea towards Somerset. So he followed it a little way, but then decided, no, it's no point because it had gone by then, and they didn't have enough fuel. So then they came back. He radioed it into air traffic control in Cardiff Airport, and somebody there leaked it to the newspapers.
Yeah,
that's how it got out.
Yeah.
So we've got a translucent bubble with nothing but a green and a red light inside it.
About 3 feet across, yeah.
If you've been under a helicopter when it's got its rotor blades going, you know how much of a downdraft there is.
Yeah, it didn't even wobble. No, it's incredible. It's just, I don't know. What can you say? It is unexplained, isn't it? Do you want to move on to another picture?
Yeah, let's have a look at what we got. Well, we haven't touched on. Do you want to do the next? We might as well do the. Oh, 9B. This is going to be great because it's a proper Welsh name.
9B.
9B. Llanyrchi Med.
Well done.
Right.
Good enough.
Sounds like me when I got a whiskey.
Llanyrchi Med. Little village on Anglesey.
9B it is.
9B. And I'm not going to try and say it. So.
Right. Anglesey is it's quite a large island off the North Wales coast. Yeah. And this was September the 1st, 1978.
Okay.
By the way. It smacks a lot of the Broadhaven stuff that was going on the year before, where tall, white, sort of silver, in some cases,
suited beings,
suited humanoids were seen in the area. A lot was seen in Pembrokeshire at the time.
Yeah.
I think she said they were about 7 foot tall, weren't she? You know,
yeah. Yeah. Well, what happened was the Llanyrchi Med, there was a little, in the village, there's this little council estate, just one street, basically, bordering on these fields to the south. And there were multi-witnesses to this because it happened in the afternoon on a nice sunny day. There were some boys playing football in the field, and one of them, David Hesketh, saw what he described as like a bullet-shaped white craft with a pointed front with a blunt back. So it's like a bullet shape.
You could put 9C on with this. We got about 2 or 3 photos of this, so as we're going, we'll put it up so people can see what we're talking about.
Just after it happened, I'll go through what happened really. A lot of the boys ran away, but this David Hesketh stayed in the field because shortly after this craft came down and landed in the next field down, he saw 2 humanoids walking around the field that he was in. He was literally just yards away from them, and he could describe some sort of lines on the front. But straight, one of them had, I think they both had their arms up in the air, or one arm, I can't remember.
I can't remember, yeah.
2 arms up in the air, just walking around like that. But he can't remember the legs or the face, which is interesting because a witness from the year before in the Broadhaven things that were happening in southwest Wales, they couldn't remember the face. It was as if it had been blanked out in their memory.
Right.
Yeah. A woman living in one of the houses, looking onto these fields, said that she saw in the next field along again 3 or 4 of these tall white figures walking through the field, and all the cows in the field were running away from them. They ran down into the corner and huddling away, scared of them, you know. So there was an animal reaction there. A lot of stuff in the newspapers at the time. The police were involved. The police came. There's stories that the army turned up.
So did the witness in the field actually see him leave this object? Or did they just...
No, they saw this. The craft came down and it went behind the hedge when it landed. It was shortly afterwards that these beings were seen walking around the area. We went up to the village a couple of years back, and I actually managed to knock on a few doors, and the woman who saw this everything happening through a bedroom window, she's still living in the same house, amazingly. And
she was in the first photo that that was put up about this case.
yeah.
Okay.
It was investigated at the time by a crew-based UFO group, and subsequently by Bufora, who wrote quite a good article about it in the Bufora magazine, the journal. And this woman that we met, it refers to her in this article, saying that she seems to be of not reduced,
not very good with English or something, wouldn't it?
No, it was seems to be not very intelligent. It's really
it's a bit
not really nice at all. But when I spoke to this woman, I told her that, and she said, "Oh, I didn't read this article." She said, apparently, being Anglesey, English is her second language. They all speak Welsh as their first language. So speaking English, they wouldn't be very fluent, I suppose.
No.
These crew-based ufologists from England, trying to get her to tell them what she saw. They assumed that she was lacking intelligence.
Well, they're probably lacking a little bit of intelligence, not looking a little bit deep.
It was 1978, you know, that was 1978.
But we've met Pat, and in his case, like, because they're really proper deep Welsh, and they talk quite fast. It's hard to try and for it, even that's because he Welsh. So like
South Wales and North Wales completely different.
Yeah.
Well, we won't be inviting her on here. You can guarantee with that. no, we'll never understand.
Translate that.
Is there more photographs to this one, or is that? Have you covered it?
Yeah, there's the 9D, which it just shows the humanoids shapes and what they look like.
Again, that was from, I think it was from the Bufora journal.
Bufora article, yeah.
So do we move on to the next set of?
Yes. Well, we could go on to Broadhaven.
Yeah, I've been waiting to hear about this one. This is the 1977 case.
Again, it's not one that we've researched because, there's 1978 and there's some other ones from years ago which we've touched on that we've done the research on. But the Broadhaven, or the Welsh Triangle, as some people call it, because Peter Paget wrote a book.
I'll just stop here. Les, we're on number 5, and we've got about, let's look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've got 9 photos that you could just put in as we talk along, because it's all about the Broadhaven. Broadhaven.
I can't see the pictures, but I'll just go through. I'll give an introduction about it anyway. February 1977 was the start of an amazing year in ufology. It was what they called a flap. You don't really hear that word anymore, do you, in UFO terms? A flap. But 1977 was the flap of flaps, I think. It all started February the 4th. At Broadhaven Primary School, where I think about 10 to 12-year-old boys, mainly, through the course of the day, saw a landed craft in a boggy area just outside the school grounds. And several of the boys said that they saw a being, a humanoid, walking around. Now they told the teachers, and the headmaster, Ralph Llewellyn, got them together separately to get them to draw what they saw. And some of the drawings are up on there, I think.
Yeah.
Obviously, 10 to 12-year-olds, they're not brilliant artists, but bearing in mind there could be some artistic license going on, they all basically saw a domed craft. Some saw a being. And the being that they saw is very quite similar in the drawings. Ralph Llewellyn then contacted the local paper, the Western Telegraph, the Western Daily Telegraph, based in Haverfordwest, and the reporter went out to see them, and they wrote an article, and he got into the national press as well, and huge media interest in the locality kicked it all off. Lots of other stuff going on in the area. Just down the road, Ripperston Farm, where Pauline and Billy Coombs had a dairy farm. They were tenants in a dairy farm. with about 100 head of cattle, and they, over a period of months, very strange stuff was going on.
Is this
there.
before or after?
After, I think it started in April. The school was February 4th, and in fact, we marked the 40th anniversary by organising a conference in a day's conference in the village hall, which is right next to the primary school. And one of the boys at the time, he's now in his 50s, David Davis, he came down from his home in Shropshire to give a talk in this to mark the 40th. And we actually went into the playground at the exact same time, about 10 a.m., where the first sighting was seen.
Yeah,
it's quite good on the 40th anniversary, and he's the only one of the boys to keep in the public view. Everybody else don't want to know. They don't want to talk about it. Now, despite the fact that when he left the primary school and went into secondary school, because of all the media interest and his name being out there, he was bullied for years over it.
Got quite a bit of stick for it.
Yeah.
You know?
At the time, there was a Bufora investigator living nearby called Randall Jones Poe. He went there just after it happened, and he interviewed the kids. And his account is in his book with F.W. Holiday, co-written, called the David Enigma. About the same time, Peter Paget, who also visited Broadhaven, he wrote a book called The Welsh Triangle. And I don't know if you've heard of those books, but they're very well known in South Wales anyway.
Also, Clive Harold wrote a book called The Uninvited.
Oh, yeah. Clive Harold, yeah. The Uninvited.
Well, I've got the Welsh Triangle. I've never read it. But
yeah. But going back to Ripperston Farm is an interesting one, because over a period of months, the family saw craft flying over, orbs, humanoids in the fields. There's off the coast, there's a rocky island called Stack Rocks, and Pauline and her daughter saw a craft, a saucer-shaped craft, dive into the rocks. She thought it was going to be an explosion, but she said as if a door opened and he went into the rocks.
Really, you know.
And another time, her husband Billy was he'd gone down to the cattle shed to check on the cows. You know, quite a large herd, about 100 cows. They were all in the cow shed. He bolted the door as he left, walked back up to the farmhouse, and his phone was ringing. When he got in, it was the neighbouring farm, Broadmoor Farm, and they were quite annoyed, putting it politely, that Billy's cows were milling around their farmyard, causing damage and knocking over piles of cattle feed and stuff like that. And he said, no, they're not my cows. I just checked on them. They're in the shed. And he said, no, they've been here a while.
Come and get
Best
your
part of an hour,
cows.
we've been trying to get hold of you. Come and get them. He said, no, they're not mine. And he put the phone down. So he went back to he went back to the cow shed, and he opened the door and it was completely empty.
There's some time distortion there, isn't there? You know.
Yeah.
Well, they were in two places at the same time.
Yeah. It's
something that teleported the cows from his back in time, a couple of miles down the road. So he had to go down the road with his son to drive the cows back up the road, and it took a couple of hours.
So it's an impossibility. It happened, but it's an impossibility, isn't it? You know, we have some kind of special technology that we don't possess. Right. Just for a moment, let's see if Les has got any more questions for us. Not any more, because we haven't had any tonight, have we, guys? Go on, Les.
Hello, and let's have a look. It's been really fascinating up to now, guys, and thank you very much. We've got some great questions in tonight on the chat, if I can get through some of these. Johnny Nigma, well, yes, Johnny Nigma, yeah. What would you say are the most interesting cases? Would it be the Night of the Triangles?
It is probably a quite interesting one, because we're still getting witnesses coming forward now. Yeah. Even though they were young at the time, you know, they were like 15.
Yeah, one group of them was a whole primary school in Cardiff.
Oh, I know rugby.
And a rugby team, kids, 15-year-olds, the game was stopped because this triangle went over the
Big
field.
craft.
In Cantwell Major.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a lot of work to do on that one.
It's potentially massive, this, isn't it? You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
already,
yeah.
but, you know.
Well, yeah, I think it's one of the biggest cases in Britain that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Okay, great. I'll get a question from Paul Hadley. Did you guys remember the one over Wrexham, our street, around 92? They blamed a nightclub laser. They blamed a nightclub laser. No, you don't remember that
Feel
one?
free to contact us and let us know about it.
Let us know about that.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say that'd be something that would interest you, wouldn't it? Yeah.
So, Paul, the guys don't know about that, so if you could forward any information to them, I'm sure they'll be happy to receive it. Question from Space Cadet Lottie. Are there any recent reports from the Gower area?
We're in the Gower now, actually.
Yeah.
He lives in the Gower.
We get quite a lot of sightings in and around the Gower. Really is.
Yeah.
And there was one when I was a young lad. Same time as Broadhaven? Just literally down the road, about a 30-minute walk from my house.
It was September the 1st, 1977.
There we are. Go on, you tell it.
No, he was in school with the
two boys. But it was literally just 100 yards down the road.
Shall I tell the story?
Yeah, go on.
They were picking blackberries in a field next to Bishopston, the village of Bishopston. And they were picking blackberries in the hedge, and all of a sudden this craft rose up from behind the hedge, and it was a domed craft. It was very similar. One of the boys did the drawing of it, which was in the local paper the following day. He put it in, and it's almost identical to one of the drawings that the school kids in Broadhaven drew, which would have happened, but
very, very similar.
8 months before.
Yeah.
And it rose up and flew away, and they ran home. One of the boys was the son of the local vicar, who went back with them to the field, and this is all documented in the newspaper article. The vicar said that he went to the field, and there was a flattened area of grass where something heavy had sat. And there's a photograph of the boys with this flattened area in the paper, because the local journalist went up and took a picture of them with the flattened area of grass. Yeah, that was that was in the paper, and you got to hear about it because he's in school. He was in the same primary school. That was the 11-year-old.
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
In the last year, it was just
10 years old.
last couple of days of the summer holidays. It wasn't it? And did they get a lot of stick?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
They won't talk about it now, because you know they were in the main paper.
I did contact them and asked them would he be interviewed. He said no. I said I got a young family. I said no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
There is lots. You know, we could probably spend a couple of hours, at least maybe 2 hours talking about sightings around Gower.
Yeah.
We had one with Skywatch.
The night of the triangles involves Gower, because the village we're in now was blacked out. This is where it was blacked out when this triangle went over.
Yeah. So obviously affecting the power. Well, if you don't mind, we'll move to another question, because we'll get a bit of earache from the people in chat if we don't get through a few. So
we get some great questions in every week on the chat, don't we, Paul? So we've got to move through. Patricia Adams Wright is asking, any idea why they would show themselves when they have the ability to cloak? That's a good question. Yeah.
Good question.
Sometimes they show themselves to one person. There was one case in Milford Haven in 1977 or thereabouts. F.W. Holiday wrote about it in his book, The Dragon in the Disc. He said this guy was walking down the street, in the main street in the town of Milford Haven in broad daylight, and he said he saw this large craft shaped like two scallop shells joined together go over the street at low altitude, slowly, and then went down behind his church. He said nobody else saw it. There was loads of other people about. As if it's only for him. It's as if it cloaked itself to everybody else, but except one or two individuals maybe.
Yeah, you know.
We hear about this quite often.
Yeah,
Go on. Sorry, Mike. Go on.
I was going to say we get quite a few cases coming in where people can't believe other people haven't seen it because they saw it and there was other people around, and it was as if it was just meant for them to see rather than.
But the question was, why are they cloaked? Is it or not?
Yeah. Yes. Why would they cloak themselves?
It's weird, yeah.
Why do they show themselves if they have the ability to cloak themselves? That was it. Yeah.
I suppose we're trying to understand the whys and the wherefores of something that's not thinking on the same level of as us.
Well, why would they have bright lights on them? Sometimes they're completely dark, but sometimes they're covered in lights. Thinking, look at me, hey, look up. And sometimes
we might not even figuring what they're doing. You know, we might not be. We think that we're the most important thing out there, don't we? And we probably have no importance to them in some instances.
There have been many cases of craft coming out to the sea off Rill in the North Wales coast. Gary Rowe, a local ufologist, lives in Rill.
Can I just interrupt you there? That was the next question from Tony Worrell. Do you guys have many reports of it coming out of the sea?
Right, well done.
Yes, quite a few.
But that one, I'll just quickly answer that one. Gary Rowe was saying they come out of the sea off the North Wales coast and they fly up the Vale of Clwyd, keeping low, below the Clwydian Range Mountains, below the radar, he says. They go about as far as Denbigh, which is another UFO hotspot, the town of Denbigh. And there's lots of stuff happening down there. There's one case called the Denbigh Lights, which we haven't talked about, from 2012. We did meet a guy who was fishing off Port Talbot on the coast, South Wales coast, 3 a.m., who said he saw a white glow in the sea, and then all of a sudden a red light appeared. He thought it was a boat turning a red light on, but then it just shot straight up into the sky. That came out of the sea. Other fishermen off Pembrokeshire, near Fishguard, told us about stuff coming out of the sea.
The funny thing is, the one that Emlyn just talked about Port Talbot, it was Aberafon, coming out of the sea and shot up in the sky. We interviewed him, put it on our YouTube channel, and a couple of fishermen who were fishing, they said, "Oh yeah, we saw exactly the same thing." You know, so it corroborated what he was telling us.
He did say they were on this.
Yeah.
It's like this, we get that.
And there was that one with the two policemen we talked about earlier in Porthcawl, 1957.
Yeah.
The fisherman one down in West Wales. It was roughly around Christmas time.
Yeah.
He'd been fishing. Right. What behind that, I think, is steep rocks, steep cliffs. You know, it's like a secret spot they go fishing in. So they don't tell anyone where it is. They just tell you they've been, you know. And they said there was a white light out under the water. And he couldn't figure out what it was. He was looking at it thinking, oh, it must be divers, you know. Next thing, this light came out and he was just hovering up in the air. And they sent us a video. We can't play the video because of the language on it, you know. It was pretty bad. But you could hear that they were like, couldn't work out what it was, you know. And it was like, what the hell? And the one was saying, no, don't call it, you know, it'll come towards us. But it was just a light that came out of the sea, but they saw it in the sea first, you know.
So really, there's an abundance. There's an abundance of sightings, really, then of objects coming out of the sea. I'll move on to the next question, guys. From Jeremy Brooks, he's asking, were there any other unusual phenomena spotted around the time of UFO sightings? Example, cryptids, etc., or any other, other strange phenomena with the lights and the sightings of UFOs?
I can't say that we've had any cryptids or anything like that we've come across in any of our research, if you like, you know?
Yeah.
No, it's... We haven't even really come across any cattle mutilations, which is quite bizarre. We have, on some cases we've researched, we've come across mutilated animals, but not on the area where we are, you know?
Not in conjunction with a UFO case. No, I know what you're saying, yeah.
Well, that's quite interesting. Maybe you should have a look to see if there's any cryptids seen around, or wild animal cats, or.
Okay, I've got a question from Tim Brennan. Now I found this interesting actually. Tim Brennan is asking, and welcome to the show, Tim, by the way. Do you think our own military are cloaking the phenomena out of view as opposed to the ETs? That's a great question.
Well, I'm pretty sure they know they're here because we quite often we can get sightings coming in, and somebody. This is a classic one. You got contacted by Jason and Fee in St. Thomas, and they said, oh, they saw something up in the air, you know, at a sighting, and it moved off in a certain direction. I'm standing, so didn't know anything about this or anything. I'm standing outside the garden, and I heard this helicopter come in. I'm thinking, oh, what's this? And it was a Merlin helicopter. It went quite low, and it went off in a direction. Anyway, during the afternoon, he said, oh, we had a sighting come in. And I said, well, what time is that? And it was a case of like, well, about 5 minutes after the sighting, this Merlin helicopter was going in exactly the same direction as what was seen was going in a direction, presuming.
Yeah, there have been cases of military aircraft being seen in conjunction, like Jonathan Davis in 2010 on the North Gower coast in the estuary. Saw these lights.
They're quite a fascinating case.
And he said there was a helicopter flying towards it, and all of a sudden the helicopter went back to where it started and flew again. This kept repeating. So he thinks this helicopter wasn't a helicopter. You know,
it wasn't a helicopter. It was like a screen.
Yeah.
The noise was there too.
But then there was like a real helicopter just after that, wasn't there?
Yeah.
So the military were there. Dave Pearce, he was in school in Maesteg in the Llinvi Valley. When was this? In the 80s, 86, I think it was. He saw a dark disc in the sky, and it shot off, being chased by a couple of tornado jets. So what was the question again? If they cloak, or is it the military cloak? Well, some of the craft could be military.
Yeah.
Some of it could be, but you know what you describe in 1983.
Yeah.
I mean, God, how many years later is it? We're in 2000 and we're in 2021 now. Surely, if this were our technology, we would be employing it now to settle conflicts and other things.
Jet engines, haven't we?
Yeah, you know, so why isn't it being used? I mean, this is your show, guys, but briefly go to 1966 and the fishermen all in crab pots off Crab Rocks at Flamborough. Look up and there's a sphere of light the size of a football above their heads, silent, that just shot away.
Yeah.
You know, they ducked because they saw this reflection in water and then looked up and it's there.
Yeah.
1966. If this is our technology, why aren't we using it now? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's you know, and then you think of the triangles. If somebody wanted to put an earthly explanation to them, only thing I could think is, were they holograms? Were it some kind of testing of some kind of holographic technology? But then you dispel that because this guy's looking up into a field. You've got people getting a bit of missing time. I better get back to Les's questions. So fire away, Les.
I'll get a couple more questions in, I reckon. Deborah Singleton, our very own Deborah, is asking, have you read or heard of G.L. Davis's books? The book Harvest covers abductions in Pembrokeshire and is very scary. If you know of it, what are your thoughts?
Harvest, we've actually got. I got a copy of the book. In fact, I can't remember the guy's name. We've got him down as to come to give us a talk as a speaker to one of our meetings.
Great.
So that'd be quite interesting. But I've given Emlyn the book.
Yeah, and I got a pile of books that big to get through. I'll get through it.
Yeah.
Get through it.
Is this animal? Did you say mutilations? What's the book
it's
about?
about abductions.
Abductions.
Possibly harvesting human genetic material. Isn't it?
Right. But does it involve fatalities or just alien abduction?
I'm not quite sure, to be honest.
Okay.
Just abduction.
Alien abduction.
I said just as though it's blasé. It didn't. Take it seriously.
It's not. Again, if you want to. You mentioned about fatalities. There is the story in the Black Mountains and the Brecon Beacons range. Stories going on about human mutilations there. It's involving British military and the American military.
Well, do you know, I know Les wants to get through another question, and I think that we need you guys back on, really, because that's something I would like to cover. Not too graphic, because we want to keep us YouTube channel, but, But come on, let's give us another question, please.
Yeah, Teresa Walker, welcome to the stream, Teresa. Question: do you think the military have back engineered alien technology?
Not the British military, the Americans possibly.
Yeah, I'm sure there's something
again,
going on somewhere.
But like Paul said, why aren't they using it now? You know, decades and decades. 1947 was Roswell, wasn't it? Have they been back engineering it since then? If so, why are they still using jet aircraft?
Yeah.
Okay,
Another thing is, if it's top secret military craft, what are they doing hovering just over, houses, so hundreds of people can see what it is?
Yeah, it's not really secret, is it? With it covered in bright lights.
Are you talking in 1983? Yeah.
Landing in a boggy area near a school, so 12 school children can see it. You know, and then dressing up as some kind of strange creature because it didn't sound like a humanoid that stepped out of it, did it? You know, it's in fancy dress as well. You know, it's part of the argument sort of contradicts itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Go on, Les.
Yes, I'm just do these in order. Val is asking, can we get Alan Godfrey onto the show? That's a good request. Everybody knows Alan, of course.
Just before we go on, lads, next week, all being well, we've got Dr. Irina Scott on the show. She's written several books under Philip Mantle's Flying Disc Press. Really interesting woman. I hope we're going to enjoy talking to Irina. But for the present, Les, have we more questions?
Yeah, well, while you're giving plugs out, I'd like you to plug your own website, Paul. And okay, as you always do. Okay, it's on the screen now, your website.
Yeah, thank you. And big thumbs up to Don Lodge as well, because he's responsible for the website. I sort of gathered reports and fire them at Don, and he puts them on. He's the technical guy for me. And he just put a shopping cart on as well, if that's what we call it, where people can purchase the books. It works out the postage and everything. So thank you very much, Don.
Yeah, thanks for, I think Don is responsible for instigating this tonight, isn't he? Because
he is, yeah. I've got a lot to thank Don for, to be honest with you.
He actually came to one of our meetings a couple of years ago. He was on holiday from Yorkshire.
Yeah.
He keeps in touch with us as well, so it's quite cool. It's quite nice.
He's a good artist as well, I believe.
Yes.
Excellent portrait painter, isn't he? You know, I mean, and you're guaranteed a lively conversation when you speak to Don. Let's put it that way. So there we go.
A question from Alex Wingfield. Lads, have you spoken to any farmers about animal mutilations on the Brecon Beacons?
No. We've got to be honest. We haven't.
Again, there were human mutilations there as well, not involving farmers. But farmers. There's only one farmer I've spoken to, and that was a case from Snowdonia. I met him, and he just said he was coming out of the cow shed or a shed, or pushing a barrow, and the whole area was lit up in a bright light, and he saw this craft. But not mutilations. No, again, Mike said earlier, we haven't really touched on mutilations in Wales.
It's quite strange. You know, we did do a case, and I even got in touch with Dave Caton and asked him, and he didn't sort of know of many in the areas that we were talking about as well, which is quite strange because, you know, we do know animal mutilations go on. Yeah. So it's all right. Surprise is not one in the facilities that we know of.
Yeah, because there's more sheep than humans in Wales.
Oh, yeah.
Well, here's a good question. Here's a good question from Jonathan Davis, and it's a $6,000 question. Why do orbs tend to be orange and in threes?
That's the point. Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah. You do get the odd green one, or yellow, but
John is an experiencer, and he comes across, he sees orbs in threes, and he's filmed some and he's sent them to us. In fact, he's been well worth getting on your show to have a chat with him.
It's lucky that they're in threes actually, because if he just kept seeing two, I'd think he was seeing double.
Yeah.
Because he's an experiencer, and he's got a whole, you know, he's really interesting.
We do sky watches, and a couple of times we've seen orange orb.
What do you think's behind the orbs then? What do you think's behind them? Do you think there's something inside them, or do you think it's intelligent light? Do you think it's some kind of plasma intelligence?
I think it's like a probe.
Yeah.
Like we send drones Maybe the ETs use these. Maybe they are some kind of artificial intelligence behind it for itself.
The ones that you guys have seen, then have they just appeared and then disappeared, or do they appear to fly in?
I think quite often we get reports of like white orbs, green orbs, red orbs. There's a theory that they change colour. Like they could be going along white and then they'll change colour to a red. Maybe they go a bit faster or slower. I don't know. But there's a theory that they change colour due to what they're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
We did Skywatch a couple of years ago on top of a place called Kevin Bryn.
Off screen.
We had a place called Kevin Bryn. And we did a little bit of...
On Gower?
Yeah, Gower. Playing inside crop circle tones. I don't know, it's a bit like CE5. But it's you can get it on. It's a bit like what Greer does. But so I went off, did of that. And then, so myself and Emlyn were down by a stone ken. And the other group of guys were up by the car park, which is about a quarter of a mile away. So we were standing there, and we still looking at it up in the sky, and both of us said at the same time, what the hell is that? And all we could see looked like 3 lights, maybe 4, white lights, coming across from the sea at roughly a couple of 100 foot above our heads.
They were in a line. They were in a line, but they were going sideways. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not like in line. They were going like sideways.
And
but there wasn't really orbs. It was a craft with lights on. That was.
But there was lights. But then we couldn't see. All you could see was the lights. The white lights. They were roughly a couple 100 foot over our heads. There was no sound of anything going through the air, like as if it was a glide or a plane, the whistling or the wind. Nothing of that. We were standing looking out. The other guys up the car park even had a camera with them.
But they didn't take a picture because it was on a tripod facing them.
They went right over their heads, and they were looking up.
He didn't think of lifting the tripod up and
taking any photos.
So strange.
We went back. We saw them bank out to sea.
Yeah.
So you could see a bit of light there, but all you could make out was the 3 lights in a line. You couldn't make anything else out.
Okay.
So we went back the next day. We had a look into, did a bit of research.
It was seen in Pembroke Dock 15 minutes before.
15 minutes before it saw us.
Just 45 miles.
And an hour later, then it was seen over Brecon.
Yeah. But that's
exactly the same.
Well, to me, that wasn't really orbs. Sorry, Les, you're going to say?
It's like calculated sound. You can't. It's
next question.
Yeah.
There's some great accounts in there. I might get a couple more questions in, and we might have time to go to another subject after the 2 questions. Carl Martin is asking, have the lads ever heard of UFOs coming out of the River Mersey? There have been a couple of sightings over the years.
Oh, no, but we've had, not Mersey, but what's the one that's between...
River Dee, the Dee estuary, the other side of the Wirral.
Which is
again, the Mersey's out of our area, because we just concentrate on Wales. But we've met a couple of people who've seen things over the Dee estuary. But I wouldn't say coming out of the Dee though.
No,
just moving craft over the Dee.
Moving along it.
Okay, Jane Louise Bowery is asking, have you heard of any Men in Black encounters in Wales? That's a good question.
One of my questions.
Well, we have, yes, actually. We probably got 1 or 2 lying about, but again, the Men in Black one is to do with John Davis. There was an orb landing. I don't know if we would have put this up on the pictures. It's number 13. It's called an Andy Moore.
You see that, Liz?
We can't speak in detail about this because he's got more questions.
No, I just gave him a quick brief. Because we talked about it.
Jonathan Davis had experience the one I mentioned earlier about the helicopter going, starting again and then again. He did some research in the local area. He spoke to farmers and that, and apparently he heard about a black van on this causeway going over the marsh, going into the estuary, and he asked a farmer about the black vans. Van or vans?
I think it was vans.
2 vans, yeah. And the farmer said, no, I got the keys for the gate. I don't let anybody down there. Why would these black vans be driving down there just after it was in this exact place where this activity had been going on.
Yeah.
But Men in Black really is about people knocking on doors, isn't it?
Well, with
The Broadhaven thing, a lot of military, there were military personnel involved in their own investigations at that time, because Broadhaven is on St. Bride's Bay, the top of which was RAF Broady, and a lot of military presence in the area. There were Rosa Granville, I think, had somebody not Rosa Granville lived in the Haven Fort Hotel in Little Haven, which is the next village to Broadhaven. The hotel is up on the cliff top. She actually saw. Remember I mentioned about Pauline Coombs and her daughter saw this craft going into these rocks off the coast. Yeah. Well, this Rosa Granville who was sitting in a lounge, and a flash of light caught her eye, and she looks out across to Stack Rocks herself. This flash of light, she thinks, was this craft as it went down. But then she actually saw white beings. She looked through the binoculars and she saw these white humanoids walking about on those rocks. But she was visited by strange Men in Black. Classic, what you might think of with Men in Black is possibly ETs disguised as humans, with dark glasses and driving a strange. Yeah, that was one case in Little Haven, that I know of. Not.
And she was visited then. She was visited after she'd seen these what she perceived as white.
Not only that, but she had another occurrence of a landing right next to the hotel in the field, with humanoids walking around in the dead of night, next to the hotel.
Is there an old nuclear bunker?
Yeah, there's there's a nuclear bunker in the field as well.
It's underground.
Yeah. These things occurring around military installations as well is interesting.
But answering the question, no, we haven't encountered any people telling us about their own Men in Black. Not that I can think of.
Only John's one, but he's not actual Men in Black, but it's black
Vans in Black.
Yeah.
Vans in Black.
But Men in Black.
If you think of Men in Black, SAS, it could well be the SAS. Because after the Brecon, that's where they be.
Yeah, I agree, but I think the question was aimed at somebody like in a fedora hat.
Yeah,
So let's see if we've got time for another question.
Haven Fort Hotel, 1977.
Yeah, there's about 3 more questions, but we've got about 10 minutes if you want to go with another subject. It's up to you guys.
Questions away.
Questions?
People ask questions.
Questions, is it, guys? Okay.
Yeah, we have got one nice, good case to talk about.
Well, we'll do one question then, and then we'll go on to this case.
One question, and Mr. Dean Cooling has got the question in.
Hi, Dean,
welcome to the stream, Dean. Have you had any reports from Abergavenny, Crickle Howell area, please?
Oh.
Yeah, there are some on our website. If you go on our website, which is, can I plug that now? www.sufon, that's SUFON.co.uk. If you go on there, there's a search panel. You can just put in Abergavenny or whatever town you want, and it'll come up with the cases, and you can just read them then. Nothing I can think of. But Crickhowell, that's next to the Black Mountains, where allegedly these human mutilations happened. Richard D. Hall's done a bit of work on that, if you look on YouTube.
There are quite a few sightings around those areas, though,
Yeah, Cumbran, Abergavenny, over the Black Mountains and the hills in between, and Valley area. Yeah.
Okay, Dean.
Nothing I can think of.
Dean might be a good guy for you to talk to at some point, and I'll speak to Dean and connect you guys afterwards.
Do you
want to move on to this last segment then?
Yes. Number 12. Les. Number 12. Cray Reservoir.
Okay, I'll try and get that one up.
I'll talk about it. Right. One of the guys that comes to our meetings regularly, a guy called Brian Harries, lovely guy. He told us about a case from August 1991. At the time, he was driving a truck from Brecon to Swansea, over the Brecon beacons, which we talked about earlier, past the Cray Reservoir. And it was about 11 p.m. at night, very dark, and he saw this huge light through the trees to his right. So he he managed to pull over into a lay-by and get out to have a look, and he had somebody with him in the truck. It was a friend of his who was a just happened to be one of these hobby bobbies, special constable, you know. He was a friend. He'd come with him for the trip, for the ride, you know, and the two of them looked at this huge orb. Is the picture up now?
It's going on screen now.
Yeah, the whole area was lit up like day, and this orb was hundreds and hundreds of feet across, hovering over the reservoir. As he looked at it, 5 other orbs came out of it on filaments of light. He did a drawing of it, if you can see it there for us to see. And he said he felt like the hair on the back of his neck was tingling. It was static charge in the air. There was cows or sheep in the fields below it, and they didn't really seem to be bothered by it. And he had a feeling that it was sort of like doing something with the water, whether he was drawing energy off the water or even taking water. He doesn't know. But he had a feeling it was over the reservoir for a reason to do with the water. And they were looking at it, and they say the hair was standing up, and it just disappeared. It just dematerialized in a flash. And he said like it was as if like a flash of lightning had gone across the landscape, like ripples in a pool, over the hills, and they just went back to blackness.
It's almost like these things are in and out of our reality. I mean, you know, when people sort of come up with all these analogies, like they can't possibly be traveling all these light years away, they'd never get to us, but they're here, aren't they? These things are, if what you guys, if there's a grain of truth in anything you've said tonight, or what I'm saying, or any other researcher, these things aren't flying from anywhere. They're actually here, or they've got the ability to just enter our sphere of existence whenever they want, and then just zap out of it again at will. You know, it's incredible. What a sighting! And you know, did he say how low it was over the reservoir?
Well, you can see on his drawing, it was just perhaps.
Oh, sorry, guys, I can't see it drawing. Yes, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Perhaps about 100 foot above the water.
Really.
Can you get it big and put it on the screen? Maybe?
Well, Leslie's got it on the screen, but so you're okay. And I'll look at this afterwards. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, look at it afterwards. Yeah.
Any more reports? Anyone else?
Above the water, perhaps 100 foot up, maybe.
Any reports from anybody else, or were it sole witness?
He tracked down Brian's friend, the special constable.
Yeah.
Who later on was a primary school headmaster.
All right.
Something there is frozen there.
Yeah, yes, screen's frozen, but carry on, lads. I can hear you.
Hello,
I can hear you.
Oh yeah, sure. Keep talking.
And anyway, if you can hear me, I'll carry on. The story that this guy gave was exactly the same as what Brian had told us in his recollection. But again, it was late at night in a rural area. We haven't found anybody else who saw that.
Okay. So does Les want to introduce a question to this?
Well, Les is in deep thought.
No, it's frozen.
I know. It's just me and you left. Anyone else there?
We can hear you.
Your internet's still on, is it?
I don't know if they can hear us. I don't think they can hear us. No, I don't think so. But not to worry. So, because I think we've quite a lot of information. And
disappeared.
Yeah, it's good. I'm glad this didn't happen earlier. So,
is that talk of human mutilations?
Yes.
They've done it.
Yeah, we'll wind it down. Thank you.
We didn't get a chance to get all the reports off the guys, but we'll end the show now because we've lost contact with the Swansea investigation group, and we're frozen.
Well,
okay. Yeah, it's okay. Are you back again? Are you back, guys?
You're back in the room, are you?
You're back in the room, guys. You still got a frozen picture, but we can hear your voice.
Just end it. We've
yeah.
done, haven't we?
Yeah. Okay then, guys. I've got to thank you, Paul, very much, and I will Well, there we go. Few technical issues tonight, but it was great from the group tonight from Swansea. Some great reports, and obviously they had some evidence from pictures, newspaper reports, and all that to back up all these investigations that they've done. So I've just got to say, if you want to click like and subscribe and click the bell icon to get all the updates, that's obviously that's going to help us with the stream. Thanks everybody for being in the chat tonight, and apologise again for not all, but for some of the technical issues. Some of it was from the Swansea end, and we had a couple of issues at the top of the show. So I've got to thank you, and thanks for all your support. I've got to thank Debbie for doing the moderating tonight, and of course Mr. Paul Sinclair. Okay, we'll see you next time.